You just finished watching the only debate in the U.S. Senate race this year here on 8 News Now, your local election headquarters. I'm Brian Loftus. The candidates are making their way out of the studio right now as we are transforming the stage for our post-debate show. We've got a lot to cover. Shakayla Alvarenga is waiting for the candidates so we can hear from them directly. We also have live analysis from political experts on both sides of the aisle. And our coverage spans 2 studios here at 8 News Now. Politics Now co-host Patrick Walker is in Studio B next door, where a panel of 15 undecided voters watch the debate intently. We'll hear from them. And some very cool technology is helping give us an idea of how they reacted to the candidates. Patrick?
Well, hi there, Brian. Thank you very much. Well, let me explain how all of this worked really quickly. As you mentioned, our undecided likely voters agreed to come in and sit down with us for the debate tonight. Focus group is roughly proportionate to the voter breakdown that we see in Clark County between Republicans, Democrats, and independent or nonpartisan voters. So we captured their instant feedback actually just seconds ago to what the candidates were saying in the debate using some audience measurement technology. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But we want to get right into some of those numbers and the questions that the panel just finished answering during the commercial break. So I want to look at a couple of data points right off the bat. So the first question is, who won the debate tonight? And it was close, 8-7 in favor of Senator Heller. Let's take a look at that other result as well. Who would you vote for if the election were right now, if you were going to the polls tonight? And again, it is 8-7 for Heller, in favor of Heller. So I want to dig in now and just ask some of our friends here in the panel about their votes tonight. So let's begin. Before we get there, we're going to go out to Shakayla Alvarenga first, though, because we have, I believe, Senator Heller standing by, if that's correct. So let's check in really quickly there. That's it. Shakayla with Senator Heller.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, we are joined live right now with Senator Dean Heller. Post-debate, the after show, what are your thoughts right now of how tonight's debate at KLAS went?
Well, first of all, it was a good debate, and it was spirited. Sad thing is it's the only debate. You know, we had a debate that was scheduled for October 8th up in Reno, and she didn't show up. So it's kind of hard to have debates when your opponent doesn't show up. But needless to say, it was good to have one down here. I think we did a great job in separating ourselves from each other, from the Second Amendment, from health care to the economy. And I think it was well done, and I was pleased with the way the moderators handled themselves. It was very, very well done, and Channel 8 has a lot, and Channel 2 has a lot to be pleased of.
What was the biggest moment for you at tonight's debate?
Well, you know, I think there were several moments. Of course, the point I was trying to make is that 90% of her contributions come from out of state. They're coming from California, New York, and Massachusetts. Nevada is my biggest state where contributions come from. So I was trying to drill that in, is that her money, in fact, she announced today another $5 million from California. What are they paying for? What is California paying for to put all this money into her campaign? So those were the kind of points that I was trying to make. Of course, the economy was the second issue that we really wanted to push. She wants to repeal this healthy economy that we have right now. She wants to repeal the Jobs Act and tax cuts, and I think that would be a shame. I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to go backwards to the previous administration. This campaign is all about going forward, and I think with this administration and what we were able to achieve back in Washington, D.C., America and Nevada is better off.
Would you say that you won tonight's debate?
Well, what I would say is I think we sent the message to Nevadans that my heart is right here in Nevada, but their voice and my voice is with them in Washington, D.C., and I fight every single day. I hope that message got across. If that's the message that we were successful at, yeah, we did very well in this debate.
Thank you, Senator Dean Heller. Thank you for interviewing with us and coming to tonight's debate. We'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Shakayla. So, again, we are waiting for Representative Rosen to come out as well. And when she does, we'll check in with Shakayla. I want to go back to the panel and explore what we were looking at here just a moment ago. So a very tight race that we saw, 8-7 in favor of both if you would vote for Senator Heller tonight and if he won the debate. So if you voted for Senator Heller, if you selected that he won the debate tonight, raise your hand for me. Okay, almost this entire row, and then we have the front and back a couple. So let's go.
Can you repeat again?
Oh, yeah, I'm just again. So did you vote that you thought Senator Heller won the debate tonight, or did you vote for Jackie Rosen?
Rosen.
You voted for, so I'll check in with you in just a second.
Thank you.
I want to go to James in the second row here. You voted for Senator Heller and said that he won the debate tonight. What convinced you that he won?
Basically, I just thought that he backed up a lot of his information on gun control, on health issues, And he seemed to point out some of the Jackie Rosen's not truths.
Those seem to be, especially when you talk about health care, the Second Amendment, those were a couple of very important issues among the voters coming in tonight. Janet, I want to ask you as well, why did you go with Senator Heller tonight?
Just he was hitting a lot of valid points regarding Congresswoman, is it Congresswoman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Basically just all of the things like the October 1st shooting, she was saying that she was there and she was interacting with the people when she wasn't. There's a lot of things that he was kind of shedding to light that I would say that I agree with. But overall, he was the more stronger candidate, I feel.
And the response to that question did flatline somewhat with all of you as we were watching that, so we can talk about that later on. Raul, as I mentioned, you said that you liked Representative Rosen tonight. Can you tell me why?
Number one, she was very clear. Her speech is very, very understandable. And by looking at her performance, my honest feeling is she has an honest opinion, an honest face, an honest way to talk to people. I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that she is truthful.
So she was very trustworthy for you.
And honest.
Okay, wonderful. Who else voted and thought that Representative Rosen was the winner of tonight's debate? Also, Raul as well, here in the front. Why did you have her winning?
I think she was more sincere in the way that she spoke. The way she answered her questions was complete. And I just think she put a better debate.
Now, is there anybody here who said that Senator Heller won the debate tonight, but said they would not vote for him? Does that apply to anybody here? So you were very consistent on how you were voting tonight. I want to hear from another supporter of Senator Heller. John, let's go to you.
Actually, I do believe that. I think Senator Heller won, but I would not want to vote for either if there's any other options. I didn't like the options out there, to be honest.
Okay, so tell me why. What did you not hear tonight or hear that you didn't like?
Because they have no straight answer. They dance around the questions, you know, and if you have people running for Senate, they could at least come out with better questions, straight to the forward point, instead of just dancing around all these questions that we want to know about the state that we live in.
Who here thought that the candidates as a pair did a good job answering the questions, actually answered the questions? Raise your hand. So, okay, Brian, I want to talk to you about that. So you're in the minority on this one. You felt that the questions were answered. Are you surprised by the other responses that folks who did not hear that tonight?
Yeah, I am.
And tell me why.
I felt like, especially Senator Heller, actually answered the questions and backed them up with actual facts in regards to how he voted. I felt that that was done appropriately. He had experience to go from, and I feel like that was how you answer a question in general.
Okay, well, we have a lot more to dig into. We're going to take a look at some of the reactions that were recorded in real time, Brian, that happened during the debate for the past hour. But for now, let's kick it back over to you.
Some people on Heller's side, some people Rosen. In the case of John, he says neither from this debate. We have Jackie Rosen standing by right now for an interview after the debate with Shakayla Alvarenga. Shakayla?
Brian, that's right. Joined live right now with Congresswoman Rosen. Thank you for being here with us. Post-debate, after show, tell us a little bit about how you're feeling and what you thought about tonight's debate here at KLAS.
You know, I feel fantastic after the debate. I feel like I had an opportunity to really show the voters who I am and earn their vote because of my bipartisan work, because I'm a problem solver, and because I had real answers to the questions, unlike Senator Heller, who was unable to look at Teresa Bohannon and her son Dean and look in the camera and tell them the truth about this health care, about slashing the protections for pre-existing conditions. Everyone knows that those junk plans will not protect people for the pre-existing conditions. And so I'm disappointed in Senator Heller's performance. I don't believe he deserves to be the next senator, and I'm going to be proud to take the Nevada stories forward and fight for Nevada every day.
What would you say was the biggest moment of tonight's debate for you?
I actually think the most personal moment for me was when they asked me about the proudest moment of being a parent. And so I got a chance to think about what it means. I do have a 22-year-old daughter. So I actually think about my grandparents and how they came to this country, and now I stand here maybe being the next United States Senator, and then I have a 22-year-old daughter, what kind of role model I can be and what kind of world I can leave to her. So I just felt so very proud when I was thinking about that entire circle of the generations before me and the ones yet to come.
And I'll ask you the same question that I asked Senator Heller. Do you think that you won tonight's debate?
Absolutely. I feel fantastic. I feel great about what I've been doing. I understand how important it is to hear Nevada stories, to really hear them and listen to them and take them back with us to Washington and promise to make people proud and do what is right for everyday working families. I'm not a career politician, and so what's important to me is the legacy that I leave behind by working hard for Nevada.
Thank you, Congresswoman Rosen. And Brian, we'll toss it over to you.
Kayla, thank you. More ahead with Patrick Walker and our undecided voters. Also, more memorable moments from the debate. We'll find out which ones really stood out to our undecided crowd. Plus, we have our political experts from both sides of the aisle standing by with George Knapp in Studio A. Hear from what they think of both candidates' performances tonight. We're back on 8 News Now in a couple minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to our post show. Throughout this hour, we're going to be watching parts of the debate that really resonated with our undecided voters next door. So how do we know what stood out to them? Patrick Walker is in Studio B to help explain.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah, our 15 friends have been hanging out with us tonight using some pretty sophisticated audience measurement technology. So if you were following along online, you saw this view behind me on the website. It has a real-time graph that was moving throughout the debate as the candidates said their piece. So David Skrzykowski is our research analyst. He has been doing a great job working with us, collecting the data electronically. So I'm going to call in David. Come on over, David. Let's talk a little bit real quickly. You have one of these meters. So could you just tell me essentially what our panelists were doing so that we could record how they felt about what the candidates were saying?
Certainly. What we have here is what's called a perception analyzer. And these dials will have a knob on it that they can actually adjust anywhere between 0 to 100. Depending on how favorable or unfavorable it is that they're viewing on the screen. So what we did is we took the averages of all the people who said they were Republican, Democrat, and Independent, and those lines that you can see here, those are the average scores that all of the people who were part of those particular demographics were representing.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this first soundbite. We were talking about immigration and a trip to the border for Senator Rosen. Let's listen in.
I did go to the border. I did go see these young children separated from their parents, anxious, afraid, in dusty tents, wondering what's going to happen to them. That's not how we should treat children.
It's pretty obvious that what she was down there to do was just to get this photo up, to get a commercial, ran the commercial the next week. Ran the commercial the next week.
Okay, so we saw a pretty large swing of the responses. So how many people, before we answer this question specifically, feel that immigration is a big issue in this election? Raise your hand. That is almost the entire panel. So, Christopher, I want to start with you. Your reaction to what you heard tonight, were you more favorable to what Representative Rosen was saying or what Senator Heller was saying on immigration? And I'll hold it for you.
Probably Representative Rosen was saying she was down there with them and talking how she was there and saw it and witnessed what everyone was going through, where Senator Heller was more trying to say what she was doing was wrong, like just doing it for the camera instead of speaking on the actual issue. So she was more just there, and it seemed like she cared about the issue while she was there.
Did anybody here did anybody here respond favorably to what Senator Heller had said? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, I'll come on over here. Dion, tell me a little bit about why you agreed with Senator Heller.
I just felt like, and it probably comes from him being a career politician, which I'm not saying is a favorable thing or not, but it just seemed like he knew a little bit more about the issue, whereas a lot of the things that the Congresswoman was saying, it was kind of feel-good words, but I'm not sure exactly if she was answering the question or really addressing the issue. Of course, being at the border and painting this picture of immigrants and the dusty tents and things like that paints a nice picture, but it still doesn't exactly tell me what she was up to.
William, I saw you nodding your head in agreement. Let me just ask you your opinion as well.
I don't totally recall what Senator Heller was mentioned on the subject. I just remember a lot of the bullying that he tried to do towards Senator Rosen, to Congressman Rosen. And at least Congressman Rosen, who only has so much experience, at least she showed that she was there. Or I don't, again, recall that Senator Heller was even there to answer that question.
Okay, well, we have many, many more moments that we're going to be looking through tonight, so we'll continue to go through the data, kind of mine the data, and see how our undecided voters are feeling. But for now, let's send it back to you, Brian, in the studio.
All right, thank you, Patrick, and we will check back in with our panel of voters in just a minute. But first, we want to go to George Knapp in our studio with our political experts.
I'm joined by Battleborn Progress Executive Director Annette Magnus and KXNT radio host Alan Stock to give us their thoughts. Let's talk about healthcare first, because that was where some of the fireworks were. Let's go to the tape and then we can get reactions.
I proposed two pieces of legislation, authored of myself. In fact, I wrote the bill, the repeal and the replacement bill for Republicans that specifically added pre-existing conditions to it, because that's how I feel about it. I have two grandchildren with pre-existing conditions. For you to think for a minute is shameful.
We need to address a medical resident shortage. Growing up doctors here. We have a new medical school here at UNLV, so we need to increase those medical residencies. That's another thing we can do. And we need to be sure, number one, that we protect those pre-existing conditions that Senator Heller and his colleagues want to slash. My phone is ringing off the hook with parents and grandparents, people who have chronic disease, serious illness, pre-existing conditions. They're not going to be able to get coverage.
I was amazed to find out how much bipartisanship there is in Washington. But she is the fifth most bipartisan member of the House. He's the fifth most bipartisan member of the Senate. Are there only 5 in both chambers, I wonder? The health care debate seemed to flare up a couple of times. Alan, did either of them move the needle?
No, not for me at least, because it's true that Dean Heller is supporting pre-existing conditions. I believe that Jackie Rosen is too. And so I don't think that nothing moved for me in this particular area. She wants to cap costs. He alluded to that also. But again, they were mostly debating about the issue of pre-existing conditions, and I think they're both on the same page when it comes to that.
Are they on the same page?
No, they're absolutely not on the same page. Dean Heller stood next to Governor Sandoval on a stage in Las Vegas and lied to Nevadans about what he was and wasn't going to do on health care. He said one thing when he came to Las Vegas, and when he was in Nevada on health care, he went back to Washington, D.C. and voted against health care time and time again. And for him to sit here and say that he cares about the Affordable Care Act and he cares about health care, that's complete nonsense. He voted with Donald Trump on this issue and continues to vote with the Republicans on this issue to repeal health care. There's a reason health care in Nevada is the #1 issue. It's because Nevadans care about this issue. And Dean Heller voted against Nevadans.
Heller wrote the replacement bill, he says, though, that protects pre.
Absolutely, he did. And it's not, Republicans do not want to get rid of health care. Republicans rightfully want to get rid of Obamacare, which is abominable. We don't want Obamacare. We could have fixed this problem when Obama did all this nonsense in '09 by going ahead and initiating pre-existing conditions in a pool that people could have had without having to throw the entire program out.
All right, we're going to talk about guns, immigration, a lot of other stuff. Brian, kicking it back to you.
A lot more to come. Thanks, George. Stay with us on 8 News Now. We'll be right back. Well, the main group of voters our candidates were trying to appeal to tonight are those who are undecided. And we're going to check back in now with Patrick Walker with our focus group of 15 undecided voters. Patrick.
Brian, that is so important, talking about the undecided voters and trying to win them over. One of our goals tonight is to see, of course, what resonated the most with our voters. So I want to take a look at a clip discussing background checks. There were 2 really notable trends. We'll talk about that afterwards. But pay attention to these lines as we play the soundbite. Watch.
That Nevada has a rich heritage and history of gun ownership, and we need to protect and preserve that. And we can do that with common sense measures without taking anyone's guns away. I want to preserve and protect the Second Amendment, but I want common sense gun safety. There are a few things we can do right away to do that.
And I will not restrict law-abiding citizens here in this country. I will do expanded background checks, and that's what the fixed NICS system was all about. I do not want my opponent was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I do not want Chicago laws in Nevada.
Please, Congressman.
Yeah, I don't want Chicago laws here in the state of Nevada.
Okay, so number one, Republicans reacted favorably when Jackie Rosen talked about instituting universal background checks at the federal level. Independents were more favorable to Senator Heller when he talked about staying away from that system. So he resonated more with his policy with independents. So let's talk to the panel. First, Republicans. Let's talk about universal background checks. So raise your hand if you're one of the Republicans who responded favorably to the universal background checks with Jackie Rosen. Okay, so let's go back to Constance first. That's not a normal position that we expect to see from Republican voters. So why did Representative Rosen resonate with you?
I just think that something needs to be done about gun control in this country. And granted, we have many laws, but they're not being enforced. And something needs to change.
Tim, how about you right next to him? What did you think?
Well, I always revert back to people try to blame the gun itself. I mean, the gun is just a tool. There has to be something done about, vetting or checking up on people that are buying the guns. And there is such a touchy subject. And the debate's going to go on forever. I don't know if there's ever going to be a solution, but you just can't ban a gun or a bump stock or whatever it is. It's just a tool, and it's the person that's using it that needs to be fixed or find a way to.
Background checks passed by 1%, so that illustrates your point in Nevada. We have to wrap up real quickly on this side. Let's go back to Brian. We'll check back in with the panel here coming up in just a short bit.
All right, Patrick. Again, he'll be back shortly with those undecided voters. But again, George Knapp with our panel of experts. George?
Again, for a while, it sounded like they were on the same page on some parts of this question about guns, but there are some distinct differences that jumped out here.
Absolutely. Their records couldn't be further from each other. Dean Heller supports the NRA. He is in lockstep with the NRA. They fund his campaign. They're one of his biggest donors. And what we know about Dean Heller's record on guns is that he voted to make it easier for people with mental health problems to access weapons when they shouldn't. He does not support universal background checks for all gun sales. He has done nothing for the bump stock issue, even though the tragedy happened in our own backyard. Dean Heller's party is in leadership. He could have done something about the bump stock issue, and he did nothing. And he continues to do nothing because that's what the NRA wants, and that he's in the pocket of the NRA.
We heard one of the Republican voters in the other studio, Alan, say that even though she is a Republican, that she had a visceral reaction to the gun issue, that she sort of sided with Jackie Rosen. What do you think was Dean Heller's strong argument here? He opposes all background checks, I guess, for private sales. Does that resonate with the voters that you know of?
Yes, the background checks in terms of if a father wants to give his son a gun, he shouldn't have to go through a background check and pay for it. If I'm in the Guard or the Reserves and they're going to activate me, and I give someone my gun to watch my uncle or my father or my son to watch while I'm overseas, and I have to run a background check on them, I have to pay for it under these concepts. And then when I come back, they have to run a background check on me. The idea is absolutely insane. She wants to limit magazine sizes. Keep your hands off my magazines. I've got large magazines. I don't want them to touch magazine sizes. Don't want them to touch assault weapons, which, by the way, you ask Democrats always about assault weapons when they say ban assault weapons. And you say, what's an assault weapon? And none of the candidates, not one of them running for governor, running for Senate, nobody can tell you what an assault weapon is. I say it's a stone. Ask David and Goliath. David used a stone to kill Goliath. That was an assault weapon.
If David could shoot about 100 rounds a minute, I guess I would probably agree with you.
That's exactly right.
We're kicking it back to Brian here now.
All right, much more ahead with George. Coming up, we have Tatiki Felix, Denise Valdez, Steve Sebelius, the moderators of tonight's debate. Hear what they have to say about the mood in the room tonight after this short timeout. Stay with us. Welcome back to our post-debate coverage. Who helped their case more tonight, Senator Dean Heller or Congresswoman Jackie Rosen? We do thank you for staying with us for this second half hour. I'm Brian Loftus. 8 News Now anchor Denise Valdez joining us with her fellow moderators, Politics Now co-host Steve Sebelius, and Univision Political Washington correspondent Tatiki Felix. First of all, we just talked a little bit about the fact that it got at times contentious. What was the mood in the room like for you?
Well, I don't think people at home know, but we get in the room about 20 minutes beforehand, and then the candidates come in about 15 minutes beforehand. There's music playing. It was very calm, very quiet. And then within just a minute before the show, you could hear a pin drop as they were getting prepared. And then, Tatiki, you and I both agreed, we were surprised that Jackie Rosen came out so assertive and I don't want to say attacking him, but was very strong in a lot of her comments.
We were not expecting that. We were expecting Jackie Rosen more sober, which I believe that she did a very good job. But she was the very first one to take a swing at Senator Heller, which I found that interesting. I found that very interesting as well, that Senator Heller will not answer the question specifically regarding immigration reform. He will just take attacks at Rosen, telling her that she was just for the picture.
Steve, was there one issue that you think one candidate really put their foot forward and dominated an issue?
Not really. Actually, I think both candidates did a fairly good job answering both questions or dodging, as the case may be in certain instances. But I think Jackie Rosen felt like she had to be more aggressive. As the challenger, it is a very close race. She felt like she had to make a mark tonight, and she did, interrupting and kind of shaking her head and sighing at some of Dean Heller's answers when she just didn't buy what he was selling.
And smiling all the time, which I noticed that.
That was the key. Was it surprising at all the way Mr. Heller would sometimes finish his answer with a question towards Rosen? At one point, Steve, you almost had to do a little refereeing there.
Yes, I had to remind him, there's one moderator here at this point, Mr. Heller, and that's not you. But he wanted to get back in her face, I think. He wanted to, and it wasn't just the segment where the candidates ask each other a question. He did it multiple times, and trying to put her on the spot. And I don't know if it necessarily worked. But there was, it was, as you said, quite contentious.
Well, the three of you did an excellent job, so thank you so much. Your weekend begins now.
Yes,
and the undecided voters next door in Studio B, apparently it is 53 to 47% among those undecided voters, but we really want to hear from them and what they have to say about the candidates in terms of content. Were they able to sway them one way or the other? Stay tuned. Back on 8 News Now in 3 minutes. Thank you for staying with us as we look at all the big moments of the Nevada U.S. Senate debate tonight. Let's check back in with Patrick Walker in Studio B. And our undecided voters still trying to make the decision. Let's hear from them. Patrick.
All right, Brian. Yeah, another big issue that we've been talking about tonight, our veterans issue, something that resonates very strongly here in Nevada. This was the response from both Senator Heller and Representative Rosen to a question about getting things done for veterans in Congress. Listen.
It takes less now than 120 days to get that paperwork through this regional office. And you know what it means? 500,000 veterans today have health care and benefits that they otherwise would not have had. That is a true success story for our veterans here in Nevada.
I want to tell you, I'm really proud that we did pass the Forever GI Bill that allows them to use their student benefits throughout their life. I'm proud to have been on the Higher Student Vets Act that also allows veterans to get paid internships while they're going to school.
Okay, so responded fairly favorably to what both had to say, veterans proving to be a bipartisan issue. So does anybody trust one of the candidates over the other on getting things done for veterans? Does anybody think one person would do a lot better job than another? Dion, let's talk to you. Who do you think would do better and why?
This goes back to what I said earlier about just the career politician thing. He just seems like he's ready for it, where she's getting ready for it, and that's being a bipartisan issue. It's one of those things. I'm a veteran myself. I've seen what it's like for other people, how long it takes for that to get done. And once again, he answered a question and shown not what he's done in the past, but what he will do in the future.
Dion, thank you for your service. James, I want to add you real quick, about 30 seconds if you want to add.
I'm a veteran as well, and I feel that,
thank you.
I feel that Dean Heller is more aligned with Trump, the Republican Party, And Donald Trump seems to be a very staunch supporter of the veterans programs and for veterans, more so than the Democratic.
So that's an issue that resonated very strongly with you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, James. Okay, so we will come back with one final time to speak with the panel. We're going to talk a little bit about civility and attacks as well, the attacks that we heard tonight. So, Brian, we'll send it back to you, and we'll talk to you in just a couple of minutes.
All right, sounds good, Patrick. We will be back on 8 News Now with final thoughts on the debate. Stay tuned. George Knapp is with our experts, Annette Magnus and Alan Stock. We're going to check in for their thoughts on the debate once again. George?
All right, we got a bunch of issues we'd like to talk about. We're just going to have to get down to brass tacks. What jumps out at you as being significant here that could have moved the needle? Personal stuff?
Yes, absolutely. At the very end, when he talked about her being in Seattle and the fact that she made all these claims about she led the way, she was the one who was out in front. And when she responded to that, she never responded to him. She talked about, what she learned from her rabbi and all that stuff, but she never talked about the fact that she made these egotistical statements out there, like her doing all that. That was number one. And what people who know about her being up there, that one of the big sponsors of that particular event that she was at was as a member of J Street. These people are like basically anti-Israel, pro-BDS, and here she was, the former president of a synagogue, associating with people that are so basically anti-Semitic. I'm amazed.
Anything on the personal level that jumps out at you that Heller's going to have to answer for?
Yeah, a couple things. I find it hilarious that he kept calling her out for the California donors, yet 83% of his donors come from out of state. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, this is a man who has flip-flopped on every issue known to man. That's why he was so erratic tonight. He was all over the place. Jackie had answers. She was concise. She answered the questions, and you knew where she was coming from. This is a man whose record speaks for itself because it's all over the place. He comes home, says one thing in Nevada, goes back to D.C. and says something else. He did it on healthcare, he did it on women's issues, he did it on guns, he did it on immigration. You name it, Dean Heller has flip-flopped on it.
If there was a soundbite that you could grab from that debate and make an ad for Heller, what would it be?
I would have had videos of her smugness and her laughing and interrupting and like that. I would have made it out of her personality.
Same question for you.
Pointing at her, pointing in her face, and then calling out Barbara Sagaski. That was the best part of the night for me.
Thank you both. Back to you, Brian.
The three of you need a podcast. I could listen to that all day. Thanks so much, guys. Stay with us after the break. We'll check back in with our panel of undecided voters one last time with Patrick Walker for the final thoughts on the debate. We are back here in Studio B with our panel of voters, and one of the things we wanted to address, Patrick Walker, is the fact that the civility in the debate, or the lack thereof. There were times it was very contentious. Yes. What did our panel of voters think about the way Heller and Rosen at times went at each other?
Well, I could tell you just from looking at the dials, what we saw were people negatively. They would turn the dial down when the attacks would start between the two candidates. So I want to ask the panel now about that. In general, who would turn their dials down when it started to get personal? Raise your hand. Okay, Rocio, I want to come back to you first. Why, and the back row, if we can, real quick. What turned you off?
I just thought throughout the whole debate, it seemed like Heller was after her and kind of avoiding giving straight answers of what was being asked of him, and it just turned me off. Like every time he did it, it was not what I wanted to hear. Like I wanted to hear what he had to say about the issue, not what he thought about her.
So for you, Heller was on the attack the whole time.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that thought that Rosen was on the attack? Interesting. So as a group, Heller was the more aggressive of the two. Is that fair? Okay, you say it was close. Okay, tell me why.
45-55.
Okay, it was in favor of Heller.
He's just fought better, that's all. I think she got defensive more than he did, and he was on the attack. So and that's why I have to give it more to him being more the aggressor. But it's one of those things where they both failed. So it's.
How much does civility, raise your hand if that is very important, looking as the election continues and what you're going to do on Election Day. James, you raise your hand first.
Yeah.
How important is it to you?
It's very important. Everything is like divide and conquer, and I think that, as adults, they should act mature, and based on that, they don't have to, resort to those kind of tactics.
Brian, let's give you a shot.
I'm wondering if any of you noticed the reactions of the other person when Heller was talking, Rosen's reaction, and vice versa, and if that bothered you or impressed you. Yes.
Tim.
I just don't like all the mudslinging. You know, right now, I'm still undecided. But instead of, you know, coming out and say this person took money from this group, yada yada, mudslinging back and forth. To be honest, if someone just came out and put all that aside and tell, hey, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I want to change, most people would probably vote for them.
Let's leave it there. We're out of time, but thank you so much, Tim, and thank you to the panel.
Remember, early voting.